Here. Hello, friends. People of the internet. I'm just going to talk about shit. Probably today, emotional awareness. Because I figure as a topic itself, everything that you can go get in the world right now, there's nothing that stops you from finances and money and whatever else the hell you could be doing with your time to make all of that happen. But I feel like there's still some missing piece in the whole understanding of emotions. How you work as an individual, or how your biology, and then how you reprimand all of that into a better understanding on what the hell to do with yourself. Because emotions themselves are chemicals, and everything that you have ever induced into your existence, even things that were not from your own doing, your own will, right? When you were a child, you were a sponge to all the information that came to you for who knows how long, well, until you're about 12, 15, and things start solidifying, and now your view of the world is becoming a little more broadened, and you're still a sponge. I think a lot of people forget that you're always going to be a sponge. Like, conscious evolution has different compartments, and you may not evolutionize yourself on certain things. Some people don't by the time they're in their 40s and 50s, but you're still going to hit a specific point with aspects of what you are open and not open to. And some people get closed off way too early, but they still evolve, and they don't realize they're still evolving, because you're still taking something, and there's still things happening in the world. There's still always movement. So it's like, even if you walk in circles, you're still moving. So you're either digging a deeper hole that leads into something else. Like, there's always a constant realm of cause and effect that leads one place to another. And the more that we go away from understanding that the grain is always there, the less understood we are of our emotions and how everything plays into who we end up becoming. Because there's only 3 parts of the brain anyway, and 2 of them are technically your dummy brain. One of them is your actual neocortex, your thinking. And this is why meditation and just being able to think, like, all the greatest things in this existence have come out of, I say this existence, of human existence, have come out of creation and people just creating things out of thought. So your thoughts play a very big part into how you feel, but how you feel can become very distortion. It can become distortion to how you think. And so then you have to ask everything that's ever influenced and has and does continue to influence your emotions. And that's technically why people do things without having to be consciously aware of them. So that's why this brings me to talking about emotional awareness, because you have to be aware of your emotions to do anything with them. People can intellectually incline you on what you should be doing, right? The only difference between anyone being where they are now and where they want to be is education, and that's from every single department, whether it's finances, emotions, and literally anything in existence. If you want to do something as a human, you literally can just go do it. Like, as good or bad, as progressional, creative, or destructive as it could ever be, you're at the same mercy as everybody else at a specific point where, even if those choices are disillusioned by all the things that you were fed because you only like this because somebody else put it in front of your face, and whatever else in that entire sequence happens, it's still a part of you. And understanding you is awareness. Understanding is an awareness. Because once you're aware of it, you put the goggles on, the glasses, whatever, you can't take them off. There's just no going back after that. But that's the only true way that evolution happens for your emotional awareness, is that you have to be focused on knowing who, what, when, and why. every single aspect of what emotion is coming out of yourself, why you feel it. And I mean, like, there's a broad spectrum of emotions, and that's why I'm saying, like, I could probably go read them off, but if every emotion also has a vibration, and you can think everything that you want, but nothing else happens, why? Because your body is feeling a different way. And so every emotion also has a chemical tied to it. So what those technically are, like, I don't have the list of them. I'm not the most biologically educated on that correlation, because what correlation really matters in this instance is that we understand that everything that happens also has a broader spectrum of what can happen. Meaning that if you feel something, then you're also able to feel other things that you didn't even think you could feel, right? You can feel the most infinite joy and bliss, and you can feel all these other great emotions, and we don't have to connotate all the other negative things in the same line, because you also can feel those things. But that's just like the prominence of the entire destructive world that we live in. And if you could see the real progression behind having the awareness of you having emotions, and even being aware of emotions that you didn't know existed, like the vibrational emission of emotions. If you're capable of doing one thing, you're capable of doing another. So to do anything with what you have to know what you are. So understand yourself. And when you understand yourself, you'll already know what to do. Because you now get to make a choice when you know who you are. What do I want to do? How do I want to feel? Right? Because the experience itself is already giving you a prerequisite for you to now be aware of determining what happens next. Everything that already has been in your recollection of it is just a ball. And you can look at the ball, and when you look at the ball, it's like a connective string between you looking at and observing it and it existing. And the only change between you and that thing is how you associate in the middle, right? It's almost like if you could think of emotion, if you think of everything as just a fraction of everything else that exists anyway, because that's all existence is just fractals. And that's why all these other compartments in existence exist, and why other things slowly, convolutively connect together. Because every metaphor sits in a place to describe something that's realistic. I say every metaphor, every meaning that, like, I could basically take 30 different ways to describe something with a bunch of references in different areas that could all be whatever, right? When I say everything's a fractal, look at how you work, and then look at how the universe is, the Fibonacci sequence being in plants and smaller things, like it doesn't matter. Everything is the exact same regardless of how big or small it is. Which means that if you understand your fundamentals of whatever it is that you are, if you understand who you are, then you can do something about it. And by the time you get that understanding, you'll already know what to do with yourself. But you have to be aware first. If you're not aware, then you can't do anything. Technically, you're like a sheep, cattle, or anything that is not. That's the thing. I don't want to sit here and dignify to say that consciousness, that these things aren't conscious. But I think we forget that consciousness is such an expansive circle that we only understand a sliver of what being, quote, conscious even is. But being aware and having awareness is almost like your own education. And unless you are educated to some degree, even fundamentally, on either how you work, how you exist, how other things function, then you basically are going to, things still happen. So you basically will just fall into the river, is the best way to put it. So you either have to keep up with understanding, because those understandings don't just go away, but like If you only know it, you can know things, but if you don't understand them, then you are not enacting something different in your existence. How do I become aware? You put everything down and you stop distracting yourself. It's pretty simple. Because you have all of this world inside of your own head. And if you objectively sit with yourself, and the thing is not everybody is going to be able to objectively sit with themselves. There is a step to emotional awareness, and once you take the step in the direction, everything just unfolds. Like once you gravitate towards where you want to be, everything just happens. And what happens? What do you mean? The best way to break it down is that if you don't know something is going on and you're ignorant to it in your own world, then it's like living in your own room and you don't know what's under your bed. You don't know what's in your drawers. You might know it's in like one or two drawers, but it's just like, and the reason that matters is because you are your environment. So if you also wonder why emotional reactions or emotions come out of things, it's like every single thing is an influence to your emotions. And the emotions are just the thoughts are just the aftermath technically, because the body feels and then the mind reacts. So, and I mean, that's just like a part of the whole science is one too. Like what's going on in your body is just giving the mind the byproduct, almost as if they alternate in the same capacity. So don't let me get that twisted, because the mind can influence the body, but the body has already been conditioned, right? That's the difference. The mind is ever flowing, but the body is under habitual conditioning. And that's just because to exist, you have to have habits that literally let you exist. You have to literally have things that you do every day that regardless of how conscious or unconscious you are of them, that you still do them. And eating, going to the bathroom, taking a shower, whatever it is, the things that you've done 1.5 million different times that everybody else has to do. And it's like, if those are just like your memories, because they always stay the same, they're always the same as they are, the only difference is how you affiliate yourself to them. Then once you understand who you are, the only thing that changes is how you affiliate to everything else outwardly. Like, and I feel like I probably should have concised this a little bit more on paper, but like, I always know that the presentation of information will reach whoever it's destined or supposed to reach. So if you're hearing this and you've even gotten this far, you're obviously listening, because this is what is going to be digestible for you to understand. But to give a good sense of overhaul on the whole thing is, everyone has emotions just like everyone has thoughts. But your emotions are just and fluctuative and changeable as your thoughts. But you have to think in the terms of everything has to work together. So if you're thinking one thing, then you have to be feeling the same thing that you're thinking, right? And it's just kind of like, it's funny saying this because you have your own proof. The thing is every single person watching this has their own proof. You know how powerful you are, because you've seen something, done something, you've manifested something. If you were aware of your own creation in your existence and how you've created things, like, that's why I'm saying just like sit there and think, and you'll already have the epiphany of like what you've done before. But that's the only difference, is making that matter. The teachings are always in front of your face. But the only thing that stops you from being where you want to be to where you are now is literally being aware. Because if you're not aware, then you walk in circles, right? That's pretty simple. Unless you find habitual ways, as some people do in their late livelihoods, to walk in valleys that technically have to lead them in other places eventually. But it's like, most people end up not doing things until they have to do them. And that's more of an emotional reaction to your environment being the same for so long that you're content with getting used to shit. And you have to be able to like sit and ask yourself, like, think of every thing in the world right now, and it's all about how you feel, right? It's all about experiences. And then if you take all the things that make you feel other things and you just sit there and you ask yourself, well, how do I feel? If there's something that's not giving you the peace with yourself, then it's probably because you don't know how you feel. Like, legitimately, you don't know. Because if you knew how you feel, then you would already start doing something differently to change it. I guess the real difference in the middle is truth. Are you going to be honest with yourself to know how you feel? Can you accept how you feel? And then can you also at the same point be able to accept that emotions are temporary, just like thoughts, just like points of your existence? Like, I'm almost 25 and it doesn't even feel like I'm 25. Like, what? And I used to have a whole different existence. I used to eat a bunch of trash every day of my life. And I used to just sit here and say I wanted to do something, but I would never do anything about it. And like, I just turned all of that into, it doesn't even feel like it was what existence is now. And it isn't, because it's like, it's gone. Everything that's happened behind you is gone. And so it's like, how you feel is gone. You're the only thing that is creating the recollection of that. And so if you want new software and new hardware, then you have to be the one to rewire it. I don't exactly know fully where I was going with this initially, but being aware of your emotions is something that some people kind of get lost in, and it's not intelligence. It's just awareness. Because if you're aware, then you can accept things. You can. I think everyone forgets that it's a choice. You hit a certain point, it's a choice. You make the choice. How do I want to feel? I mean, you just... If you wanted something, you would do it. It's pretty simple. You would find it out. You'd figure it out. Everything's on the internet now. There's no... It's not like it was in 2012 to 2015. Even 2017, 18, 19. Like, everything, when we hit 2020, definitely, like... It finally solidified for everyone to realize what the hell the internet is and what's going on, and, you know, utilize it to their advantage, whatever. But, like... And I feel like I'm just giving a semi-blanketed version of what some people could give in a more educational front. Like, exactly what emotions are tied to chemicals and what's making you release certain chemicals like cortisol and stuff like that, and your adrenaline and whatever else. And what foods are making you release adrenaline and cortisol, and you know, you are every single thing that you've ever consumed or that you consume right now. So if you want something to change, then you have to ask yourself where the change begins. To lay this out once again, though, is that it never had or has to be as difficult as anyone ever makes it out to be, or whatever else. You just don't overcomplicate something that doesn't have to be complicated. You're human. You have emotions, and you even have emotions that you can feel that you might have never felt. So just, I'm not going to sit here and give you this big breakdown of them, because I'm going to give you something to know, but I'm not going to give you something to understand. You need to understand how you feel. And you need to understand what emotions are tied to everything else. Like the vibration of them. Am I going to live in a world of love? Is that what I want? But is my idea of love, like, you have to break everything down back to your basics. Is my idea of this emotion practical or not? And if you can't bring logistics into your emotional practicality, I could almost call this emotional practicality, because if there's not a reasoning behind the emotions and you just live a life of feeling all different kinds of multitudes of shit, and like, you're just gonna live like an animal. It's pretty simple. How do you want to live? You want to live aware? You want to be aware? Do you want to be able to level up at the video game? Then you have to take it into your hands. One day it'll be a lot easier for me to do this type of thing as an understanding, and I'm just kind of trying to get something else out there right now. But I think a lot, so maybe that's the best way I should put it, is as a podcast, is a collection of my own thoughts and just verbalizing them. I don't know. I need to do the podcast with my wife. That's what you need to do with me, baby. Yeah. Because, not that I don't have a direction whenever I'm speaking, but just like we all should understand ourselves, like, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not. And I can sit here and speak my thoughts into the screen all day, but some of the most beautiful things that can ever be said come out of an exchange of energy. And that's why some of the best podcasts, I feel like, are personally the ones where there's multiple people involved. Because when you're throwing information around, then a multi-view perspective on something that isn't purely scientific, I will say. Purely scientific-based stuff is kind of like, it's straightforward. You're get like it can't. It's not podcast style based stuff. Like, it's not. That's not a podcast. That's educational stuff technically at that point. But podcast style stuff just progresses so well because you can get a really drawn understanding. And if I want to sit here and take a second to think and let the other person talk, then I can. Whatever. But not to fall too far off the end of like what I'm trying to say. Education almost doesn't matter, because if someone doesn't want something, they're not going to take it. The only thing you can really do is make sure you form your perspective effectively. What does the feeling of love, the feeling of pain, the feeling of all these other things, what are they supposed to be for me? Because emotions are just an experience. Everything in this life is an experience. It's an evolving, consistent experience. And your emotions, just like your thoughts, are byproducts of it all. And how you feel right now could be conditioning from something else that has made you feel things for your whole life. And that can be anything that's the stuff that's been put in your ears, what you consume and watch every single day of your life, what you eat and put in your body. Every way that you intake information is still something that's an influence to either keep you suppressed or keep you or bring you into awareness. But there's a reason why after a certain point you gone. Like I say gone by, like, you either have the interest to level up or you don't. And so I guess my whole point in all of this is that if you want to feel differently, then sit and be aware of what's ever made you feel. I don't want to feel that anymore. What's the opposite of feeling this, though? Like, you understand yourself. And then understanding of that will come from other things. A good way to also do it is like foundation. It's like, you can get lost in the depths of anything, but if you just understand your basics, like, it'll start putting it together in your own head. Like, the reason I haven't done podcast in a while is because as much as I want to help the world with whatever approachable information that I can have and digestible information that I can present it for other people to understand it, there still comes a very fine line with giving you information, but you being able to understand it. Because I can give you plenty of things to know, but an understanding is what changes you. That's what changes your existence. That's what changes your life. That's what changes how you feel. That's what changes how you react, how you think. Because when you fully when you fully get it, and I suppose that that's what whoever's hearing this is probably going to be for if you made it this far once again. But, you know, one of the things that I personally was able to achieve, I say achieve, it's my own achievement. It's not an achievement to anybody else. Was my emotional awareness at its full capacity. And I had to sacrifice in the opposite end of that financial awareness. And just being aware of what makes me financially literate. Because I just still don't, as much as I have to sit in the capitalist game, I don't care about it. And it's not something that leads you to a place like of happiness anyway. If someone dropped you $10 million, you still gonna feel the same. As like where you are inside of yourself is the consistency. Everything else that happens ain't shit. And if you don't understand that, then ask yourself why you chase what you're chasing right now. That could be anything. Why do I want to go up and get that food? Why do I want to talk to these people, this person, do that? Why? Like, ask the question. You'll find you already know your answers. I think that's the funny thing is, like, we solve problems in one area, but don't take that same solution to solve problems in a different area of your existence. And not everyone's brain, I guess, is designed the same way. Like, I look at these things and I'm like, how the fuck do people just like function like this? And it's just because they're them and I'm me. That's why, like, the only way I can give you a better understanding of it is like no one will be able to understand you like you. You can understand how things have made you feel. Like, you have to do your due diligence. That's kind of the whole point of what everything I've ever gone through in my experiences is that you have to grow up. You have to be the adult. As much as you should still keep your like child self alive in a healthy way, because that's your creativity, that's your highest vibrational sense of self, technically. And having the balance on all these things comes at their own time. I had to do other things first because I am structured as an individual more around emotions and spiritual inclinations around that kind of stuff. It's not the forefront of my mind will never be around money and finances. It only is as much as it is now because I have to fucking exist. And so I'm still going to try to be practical with that as much as I have to be. But like, man, if I tell you I could just stop doing it all tomorrow, then I would just stop. Because the most peaceful time that I really had was being able to just sit in my garage. And not even my garage, in the garage of the house that my mother owns. That's basically a complete rundown place and is at this point... Anyway. Was just sitting in my own space, and that space wasn't complicated. I don't own many things to my name. It's just the music, had some cheap lights around the garage, and I did a lot of meditation and a lot of yoga. Discovering myself, releasing energetic points in the body. Your body is just as important as the mind. You can think and do whatever the hell you want with it, but if you don't line in the body with the same motion, then your thoughts are going to be just as relevant as the last ones. They'll just fade, and then new ones come in, and that's almost like living a purposeless life and purposeless existence. And when you don't move with intention, things still happen. But the whole point of you being a human being and understanding your power is that you can drive intention behind your emotion elevated will to do, achieve, progress, and evolutionize in whatever area that you possibly could conceive. And so you have to take your time. And then also realize that it takes, quote, time. Like, what direction are you going to step in? The direction for yourself or the direction towards the destruction of what everybody else wants you to do? Because I'm like, I could go get a job, but do we understand that the world is dying right now? Like, capitalism in itself is going to get overhauled by AI? Like, do we not? Like, our world is going to change infinitely forever, and people are kind of walking around acting like nothing's happened. And the people that act like that are the ones that are not aware of themselves, and they just feel, and like making purchases. Like, I couldn't even tell you the last time I ever made a purchase off of an ad, off of a guided ad, or off of any other things that drives people's sales like hell. And like, what's the point of that? Because people are deluded by what their emotional manipulation by the emotional manipulation and consumption rate of their involvement of the internet. But like, I just sit here and I think of, like, because I understand myself, I'm like, what do I need? And if I need something, I'm even creatively doing that in my head, because I'm assuming most things exist as a product by now. I'm like, what do I need? And if it doesn't exist, then shit, I mean, I guess I'll find my way to creating something that needs to be created. But I mean, that's the whole point of the world we're in. Everything, there's so much creation that's already been around you that if you wanted to create a new world for yourself, all you have to do is sit there and create one in your head. Your attitude is the biggest predicator of how things unfold. Wake up to your power. Write it down. Paint it on your wall. Do something. Because if you don't do anything, then you're just going to continue to be enslaved. And I'm not trying to be a part of the whole like wokeist cultural movement thing, because I think it's dumb, to be honest. It's just a byproduct of stuff that people will eat up as, information on how did this person get rich. That person got rich. Well, how did he do it? I got into this. And like, they can understand how the world has, they can break it down. How people are slaves, all this other stuff. Like, that's nothing new, bro. Fucking Alex Jones been talking about that shit for years. Don't really care about conscience. And see, that's the point, is like, people are too emotional about shit. Like, there's so much, quote, emotion around one person. Why can't you just sit here and hear them out enough to see if anything's actually truthful or not? Like, why do we have to make... It's because of emotional manipulation, and that's kind of the whole point. Is that if you're emotionally aware, then you cannot be manipulated. But if you don't have intention behind what you do, then something will drive your intention for you. I think that is the real important part. And with where AI is going, because of how much information there is, it's like, if you're not going to wake up, and I would say within the next few years, you might not even have a choice anymore of being able to wake up, like just permanently being asleep. And by being asleep, I mean that like there's so much around you that's like already automated by robots, or that not even people are doing anymore. And we just kind of look around and it's like, well, what the hell do we do with our time? Because the job market's going to fail. It is right now, if it's not already there. And it's just like, But wealth creation is in other places now. It's all going to catch up eventually. I'm just kind of like sitting here waiting for the tipping point. And I think one way that we help people not be asleep is by giving them the information to start being aware of their emotions. Because that has the most power, technically. Like, you could think, you could give an idea, but if you're not going to have the emotional action and drive behind the purpose of it, then it just doesn't matter. Be aware. That's all I got for today. Does feel pretty cool, I guess, to like be back in a motion of talking on the internet, even if I'm not talking to anything but myself in OBS. With the wife in the background, listening in. Trying to sign into this. Anyway, let me not get distracted by other things. I think I'm done with this. I'm going to try to do these a little more frequently, just to get a little bit better again in my spoken word and be able to cohesively put my thoughts forward, because it's just been a while. Anyway, I will see y'all next time.